Maryland's Diamond Miller has been named to the Ann Myers Drysdale Award Midseason Top 10 watch list for the second straight year. The award presented to the nation's top shooting guard. She is leading the Terps at nearly 19 points per game, also averaging more than 6 boards. Miller is today's big.
We're joined now by Maryland guard Diamond Miller, who's been absolutely on a tear as of late. The Terps have won 5 straight games. Diamond, starting out the season, you only had 3 players coming into this year that played significant minutes from last year's team. But now you guys have finally found your groove on the court as a team. How has that chemistry come together for you?
It was very hard in the beginning, but I think overall we had a lot of vets come in, so it was kind of easy because we all have that winning mentality, and they worked hard as soon as they came in the building, and it's really fun to see how we developed in the team we are today.
It's also been fun to see how you've developed over the course of your career. In your senior year, you've been so solid, averaging nearly 19 points a game. You lead the team in rebounding right now at 6 a contest. Where has your biggest area of growth been this season?
I'm just playing both sides of the court. I mean, some people get so caught up in just scoring and stuff like that. Obviously, you need to score to win, but the defense side is also extremely important. And just playing both sides and understanding you can.
But one of your teammates you played with last year, Cheyenne Sellers, is also having a great year. She's committed to the defensive side of the ball as well. Where have you seen her improve most?
She's not playing like a freshman anymore. Like, it's always good to see that freshman to sophomore jump. And she did that, and she's doing that right now. And she's been balling, just having a lot of confidence and not scared to, not shy.
I see what she did there. Not shy for Cheyenne Sellers. And if you're around her, she's got quite the personality as well. So never been shy for having that name. Faith Missonis is another player on your team that battled back from an injury and has come back and made a huge impact. I love watching her because she does all the little things you need to win a game that don't necessarily show up in the stat sheets. What is it like playing with someone who does do all that dirty work for you?
She's the glue. Like, she's always constantly talking on the court and setting screens and stuff like that. Just the important stuff that those are what makes us win. And that's why she needs to stay on the court as much as she does, because she does all the little things that nobody wants to do.
Watching Maryland basketball, you know that you're going to get consistency when it comes to winning. And that standard has been there for such a long time under head coach Brenda Freese. How would you describe playing for such a legendary head coach?
A lot of energy. Especially when we're like passionate and stuff. She's very passionate, and the timeouts and stuff, just always trying to make game reads and stuff. It's just a lot of fun. Sometimes it gets a little crazy, but overall, she the intentions are there, and she just wants to win. And if you want to come to a winning school, Maryland's the school.
Well, you guys have certainly proven that regarding the numbers and the wins that you've had over the course of the last 10 or 15 years since you've been in the Big Ten. But speaking of winning, you've been able to string together 5 straight games winning in the Big Ten. We talk about teams coming together so quickly, but what regarding getting these wins? What's been clicking?
Our defense. I think right now our defense is at an all-time high. We understand each other now, and we know how to play the defense that we need to play. And I think we're just executing and playing hard. Even with mistakes, we're just really playing hard, and that's all that matters.
You're playing hard. You're starting to come together at a good time as we enter into February. You have a massive week coming up. You're at 6th-ranked Iowa, and then you have to play against Ohio State, who's ranked 10th in the country. First, we'll start with Iowa. How do you approach playing a team that has the firepower of Caitlin Clark, but also the inside presence of Monica Sonano?
Yeah, we're just going to watch, scout, and really study their team and prepare for them just how we prepare for any other team. They're really talented, and we got to be ready.
And then you go into Ohio State as well, who have lost a couple of games in a row here, but still they went nearly 19 games going undefeated. How do you approach, taking on a team that presses the way that Ohio State does?
Yeah, we got to get out there and practice, so we're prepared for that press. Their press is really good. It turns over a lot of people, and we got to be ready for that. So once again, we're just going to go practice and really study the scout and get ready for that game as well.
As a senior, you've experienced now coming up on your 4th Big Ten season, so you understand how you have to go with the ebbs and flows. What's the most important part about playing basketball in February in the Big Ten?
Just recovery. Like you said, we're playing 2 really good teams back to back. So you got to make sure your body is ready to withstand the whole 40 minutes of both of those games. So making sure we're recovered, but also studying our scout and making sure we know the game plan.
Your team has been hot. You guys are ranked in the top 10 in the AP top 25 right now. What's the enter February and going into
for this team? The limits for us. If we play the right way, have the best defense, and just continue to work hard, I think we have the talent is obviously there. We just have to play 40 minutes every game, and we're a top contender for sure.
You have a lot of talent in yourself, Diamond, and you've shown that in so many different aspects this year. But I'm thinking about that game-winning shot that you hit against Notre Dame earlier on the season, and you had Kevin Durant tweeting at you as well, saying, "Hey, Diamond Miller, you a killer for that. Dirk faded the buzzer. Good win, Terps." How cool was that to have KD reach out to you via Twitter?
That's really cool. Just the recognition from the NBA is like a feeling. Yeah, like it's really cool that he said that. And I'm just so happy and blessed that I got the opportunity to show my talents to the world.
Well, you're going to have an opportunity to have a long pro career. We're really excited to see how you go in the WNBA as well. What legacy and impact do you hope that you leave at Maryland?
I just hope to show that, like, no matter how many ups and downs you have in college, you can always get back up. Last year, I was injured, playing through injury, getting up when I was, I guess, 100%. I wasn't playing like 100% myself, just always getting back up. Like, if you see my years, it's been like this over the years, but I'm here right now and I'm standing strong.
You've been through a lot of adversity and you've come out on top. Diamond Miller, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to watching you the rest of the way.
Thank you.
Our Big Ten scoring leaders entering tonight's action. Zach Edey is leading the way. He's 4th in the nation, also 2nd in the nation in rebounding. Chris Murray also over 20 per game. Trace Jackson-Davis not too far behind. Trey, we have been promising now for the better part of 40 minutes your all Big Ten team. It is February the 1st, so a good time to kind of take stock. Let's dive into it. There are some pretty obvious ones, so let's just kind of start with the ones everyone would know. Zach Edey clearly is on this team.
I mean, there's first, he has the number 1 team in the country, 1st in usage rate, 1st in rebounding. I mean, he's just the most dominant player in the country and in the league, the best player in the country and the league. I mean, it just, and his ability to defend too, I think has been really impressive as well. He's done a really good job in pick and roll situations, being active on that end of the floor, being able to demand endurance and durability on both ends. I mean, just so impressed with Zach Edey this year, the best player in the country by far.
Yeah, it's not even close, right? I mean, I've mentioned this before. You look at Ken Palm, he does his National Player of the Year. Like, the gap between him and number 2 is just staggering. Like, there's just no way in the world that he isn't going to win this award just because of how dominant he is. Interesting to watch, too. He's Canadian, of course. James Naismith, Canadian. There's never been a Canadian who's won the Naismith Award. So we'll see whether or not he can become the first one. Dates back to the late 70s, and it feels like Zach Edey is going to be that player. Were it not for Edey, Trace Jackson-Davis would probably be Big Ten Player of the Year. And maybe there's a couple other guys that you could talk about, and he would be in the National Player of the Year rank as well. Just to give you an example, Ken Palm has him 3rd in his National Player of the Year.
Yeah, he's really starting to be a dominant force on both ends of the floor. I think once Xavier Johnson, Race Thompson went out, they were losing some games. He kind of flipped a switch, and they had that 5-game winning streak. Obviously lost last night, but he's just been extremely dominant. His presence has been felt on both ends of the floor. I mean, he had that stretch where he was averaging 30 and 15, right? I mean, you can think about it. He's getting double team, triple team. You know, he doesn't have like his running mate in Xavier Johnson that can create off the bounce and the perimeter. I mean, it's just so impressive how well he's played this year.
It is remarkable how well he has played. And yeah, I mean, those guys clearly 1 and 2. Again, I don't think there's any doubt on Edey is number 1, but kind of to your point, Trayce Jackson-Davis is right there. And in anything even bordering an ordinary year, this would be someone who'd be Big Ten Player of the Year. That being said, there are some other guys having incredible seasons as well. Go to Iowa City next and Chris Murray.
Excellent. And I mean, it's easier said than to kind of pick up where your brother left off a season ago, right? I mean, and I was actually kind of one of the people that was a little hesitant to say that he was going to have this type of season where he was going to be, in the conversation of being an All-American, maybe second or third team, being a first-team All-League guy, just because I felt like his makeup was a little bit different in terms of what he could do on the offensive end. But he's proved me wrong. He's doing and has been a go-to guy in key situations, averaging 22 points per game in conference. It's been a really, really good year for Chris Murray.
He started one game a year ago. He averaged 18 minutes per game. And I know it's interesting because people did, to a certain extent, anticipate this jump. I mean, I think so to say this is unexpected, I don't think would be wholly accurate.
Right.
But still, there is something to be said for how difficult that is, Trey, to go from a player coming off the bench, a good one, but someone who averaged less than 10 points a game, to becoming an All-American type player, and he has done it. So those three obvious ones. I think there's one more that's obvious too in terms of the first team, and that's Jalen Pickett.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Pickett has been, as good as advertised. I mean, he is the heart and soul on both ends of the floor for this Penn State team. He sets up the shooters. He's able to score in the post. He's able to knock down perimeter shots. He's a three-level scorer. There's just nothing on the court that he cannot do. And I really like the way that he has this team in position to be in the NCAA tournament. They're kind of in the middle of the pack. And without Jalen Pickett, this is probably a bottom of the team or bottom of the league team. And so his ability to be able to play on both ends of the floor and be effective has just been really impressive.
We misuse the word unique a lot. I mean, unique really means one of a kind, but Jalen Pickett is unique. I mean, think about this. He is on pace to become the first player in college hoops in the last 30 years. First player to average more than 17 and a half points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists. No one has done it.
It's incredible.
And he is on pace to do it. He is such a phenomenal and unique talent. This, to me, is where it gets interesting.
Yes.
I think the first four are pretty obvious.
Locks.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would debate any of those four. Here, with number 5, I think there are a ton of different directions you could go in. You chose.
Just because, I mean, he's also similar to Jalen Pickett, the heart and soul of this team. You think about what Maryland would be without Jameer Young. When they were kind of struggling to win some games, he was the one guy that was a consistent and steady force, especially on the offensive end. He sets the table for everybody else. He dictates the pace on both ends of the floor. He's able to play. I mean, talk about his defensive performance last night against Jalen Hood-Schifino, then also to be able to score 20 points per game, or 20 points last night as well. I mean, it's just been really impressive to see how he's transitioned from the mid-major level, now going into the Big Ten. It just
mid-major basketball because I covered it for years and did conference championship games and loved it.
Yeah.
But it is different in terms of the caliber of players that you're playing every single night that you play at Maryland versus what you played at Charlotte. And not only has he risen to the occasion, but he has proven often to be the best player on the court.
Yeah, I mean, it's so difficult because I think the biggest thing is like at the guard, from a talent perspective, from an athletic standpoint. But you talk about a guy like Jameer Young, who's constantly in the paint. When you're having to go up against Power 5 bigs and his ability to change speeds, change directions, finish over the top of those type of guys, usually it takes like a guy like that a year to adjust. A lot of times when guys come from the mid-major to the high major level, they kind of get in there, they don't know what to do, they throw up something, where it's just not a high percentage shot. His ability to kind of play at his own pace and be able to utilize his speed and athleticism against Power 5 bigs has been so impressive.
Has done a great job. 20 or more points now in 5 of their last 7 games. Trey's first team All-Big Ten. Let's get your second team. It starts with a guy we've already talked about in this show in Champaign.
Yeah, Terrence Shannon Jr. And I mean, you could probably make the argument that he's on that first team. I think it's going to come down between him and Jameer Young when it's all said and done. But I think what's been so impressive, you look at the course of his career, he's kind of been the third or fourth option. I don't think that's talked about enough, the fact that now he's been inserted to be the first option on a top 25 team, and he's done a pretty good job. He's been consistent. He's, sometimes his shot selection has been a little bit questionable at times, but I really think he's done a really good job transitioning into being the guy for this Illini team.
He is so much better when he drives. Yeah. In terms of fouls drawn per 40 minutes, only Zach Edey draws more. He's made more free throws than any player in the country. So kind of we talked about writ large with Illinois. Right. Don't settle. Don't take the outside shot when you can drive the ball. That certainly applies to Terrence Shannon Jr. It speaks to how good the league is that you have an All-American caliber center on your second team.
Yeah, Hunter Dickinson, and I think we kind of take his greatness for granted sometimes. Obviously they haven't had the success as a team, but he's still been an extremely good player this year, averaging 18 points per game, has had some big games against big opponents, and just a guy that is, hasn't been always reliable, I don't think, in terms of, in moments where he really needs his team to be able to, get that 20 points, to take 15 shots. We've seen games where he's only taken like 7 or 8 shots. And I think that's ultimately why I have him on my second team, just because of the consistency factor. But ultimately, he's a great talent, a great player, can, score at all 3 levels.
Still top 5 in the league in scoring, rebounding, and blocks. The only other players who can make that claim are Zach Edey and Trayce Jackson-Davis. That's good company to be in. One of the surprise teams in the Big Ten this year, Northwestern, and their best player has been Chase Audige.
Yeah, you could make the argument this is the best two-way player in the league. Leading the conference in steals at 2.8 per game. Has really changed how he's played on the offensive end. He's able to create now in 4 dribbles or less, whereas last year, it was 6, 7 dribbles where he's, the ball's really sticking in his hands. He's playing within the flow of his offense a lot more. Maybe not as much last night. He took some questionable ones, but I really love the way that he's competed and played on both ends of the floor.
He might be the most improved player in the conference. Part of it is just being healthy, and apparently was not last year, but I agree. A lot of it is decision-making, and obviously he really causes a lot of problems on the defensive end. Couple freshmen rounding things out starting in Columbus.
Yeah, even though Ohio State is not winning, you can't leave Bryce Sensabaugh off, I don't think, the second team. Just his ability to create his own shot. The degree of difficulty of the shots that he has to take for this Ohio State team, just because they don't have a ton of options on the offensive end consistently, it's just been so impressive for a guy that is a freshman, first year in the league. He wasn't a 5-star guy, and I understand he was a 4-star guy, but a guy that has just been one of the most exciting players to watch just because of how skilled and talented he is.
And he is the focal point of their offense. When he is on the court, he takes nearly 35% of their shots. That is the highest percentage of any power conference player in the country. Again, needs some help. To your point, they've lost 6 or 7. We'll see whether or not Ohio State can get things going. So you've got him as a freshman on the second team, and you've got another freshman rounding out the group.
Yep, Fletcher Lawyer. He's the second best offensive player on the number 1 team in the country. And I think that alone speaks for itself. His ability, I think, to not only just be a shooter, to be a guy that can put the ball on the floor. I think back to that Michigan State game at Michigan State, hostile environment, and they're going to him down the stretch in that game. He makes some key plays, able to get to the foul line a couple times. I really think he's going to continue that play. I think, as teams are going to continue to load up on Zach Edey, he's going to have those opportunities to be able to create in pick and roll situations, off the catch situations, in transition. So I really love what I see from Fletcher Lawyer.
One of the things I have wondered about are pretty confident they won't, saying they both come from basketball families. They kind of understand the grind that's involved.
Right.
But 3 of the last 4 games, single figures for Fletcher Lawyer. So we'll see if he can get back on track a little bit here tonight. But he has just been fabulous. Want to get to your third team as well in the minute and a half or so that we have left. Boo Buie, A.J. Hogard, Seth Lundy, Jet Howard, and Cliff Amori. Give me a quick thumbnail of what stands out there.
I think it's Seth Lundy. And what's funny about Seth Lundy is I really felt like he was the biggest snub last year to being on the all-defensive team. And it almost seems like this year he said, you know what, forget it. I'm not going to focus quite as much on the defensive end. I'm going to really try to be a threat on the offensive end. He's been fabulous. I think he's a guy that we don't talk about enough. for this season. I mean, a guy that's third in the league in three-point shooting, a guy that still gets it done on the defensive end, is able to create off the bounce as well. So I really think Seth Lundy's been a guy that's been kind of a surprise. And obviously Northwestern's Boo Buie. I mean, he's not shooting the ball great from the perimeter. I think right now he's in the low 30s from three, but he's
28%.
28%. I mean,
Yeah.
the fact that he's been able, though, to get to the foul line, to attack, and be able to finish in the paint a little bit better has been key for this Northwestern team.
Still settles for some threes
Sure.
when he's probably better off driving the ball. But yeah, their backcourt obviously has been really good. And then I agree with you on Lundy. I think it's great that he stayed.
Yeah.
That he has stuck around. I mean, he has talked at times about, he's made it clear that he explored the possibility of transferring, but in the end just felt an affinity for Penn State.
Yeah.
And wanted to be a part of it, wanted to see if he could be a part of getting them to the tournament, and they certainly are in that discussion right now.